So in a previous film, we looked at creating some actions and kind of how to create them and use them on the photograph and things. Really, these were light leaks, which is a grey light fog, which is the overall kind of effect across the image. And in this film, we're looking to actually see how we can kind of, once we've made the kind of basic actions, how we can go ahead and actually kind of create a little bit more drama within the image. So the first things first, we could use them in a slightly different direction, so on top of each other, how they interact as well. And as far as the kind of the basics here is concerned, let me just delete those. So if we go into the light fog to begin with, this is that kind of basics across the whole image, as if it's been the film has actually been exposed to light before processing. And here, if we want to actually adjust the color a little bit, instead of actually just going in and creating a new layer, we could go in and basically make a hue and saturation layer at this point. And the benefit of this, it basically can actually start to actually change the hue overall to the adjustment, as well as the actual the saturation itself. Now the first thing to do is to make sure, if we just want to affect the layer below, we need to clip it. So that's just pressing the Alt key, putting it between the kind of the two layers, and then basically, as you can see, it slightly gives you this little kind of down arrow, and that means it's just affecting the layer below. So when we actually look at the saturation, we're only adjusting the saturation of the actual orange and red kind of layer at this point, and if we're affecting the color hue, it's only affecting the actual orange and yellow again, so the orange and red again. Okay, so it gives you a little bit more kind of control. You can do this again as many times as you want, but obviously if you think you want to actually do a whole new kind of look and feel, remember, all we've really got to do is basically just go in and change it to the dark blue and a lighter blue, as it were, and then pretty much grab our gradient, and then I would actually just go in and basically add the difference across the whole image. So whether you're planning to clip it to just the adjustment of the layer below, or it's kind of affected across the whole image, but you can see the kind of the difference that we can create straight away with it. Then we add in the likes of a light leak. So if we add in a light leak on top of that, we get a kind of an overall kind of finish to the image. Let's say we want to actually work on multiple light leaks for effect now, instead of actually as a light leak as such, really. If I just go ahead and actually delete these adjustment layers, we can see we've got a kind of a good kind of effect straight away. Let's create the light leak, even though it's going to be the wrong color for what I want to use it for. In other words, I'm going to use it for effect. So I'm just going to actually pick some colors that are within the image. So the likes of the dark blue, and I'm going to pick the likes of the kind of the lighter cyanic kind of color and things really as well. All right. If I just kind of click into here, now it's not going to really make any adjustment to begin with, because I'm making the adjustment of an existing gradient fill layer. If I was making the adjustment from scratch, it would have chose the dark blue on top, because we're working in this foreground color to transparent in the way that we're working. So in this case, though, I want to go in and basically double click or click onto the actual the gradient, and whereas we had white, yellow and then red on these stops, we're going to click onto the likes of the yellow there, and I'm going to click onto that blue I chose. Then I'm going to click onto the red and go and choose the dark blue that I chose, and this starts to actually kind of work them together. Now remember, if we want to adjust these, we can kind of actually spread them out more, but better to cluster them together. If you obviously want to have more of an effect, choose something kind of that doesn't look in the same kind of color, but you know will work. So in other words, I just move from a cyan to more of a lighter green and things really. So if we just use that for a minute, just pressing OK. And then instead of the light leak at the bottom, we actually want it to, remember, all I'm doing here is, because this gradient fill layer is active on screen, I can go ahead and actually move this to any position that I want. Yeah, I want to actually to use it to kind of almost give it a flare light. So in this case, I'm going to use it in reflected mode. That's going to put a stripe in. and now I'm going to turn the angle of the light to suit where I want it to be. So now you can see already it looks like it's beginning to come out of here. So if you're a Star Wars fan, a bit of a light sabery moment going on there. And just by increasing the spacing, we've got a kind of a real different effect. So it's almost like a crystal has been placed in front of the image itself. Let's duplicate that effect. So just Control J will duplicate that same gradient. Double clicking again will make it active for me to go ahead and move within the image itself. And as far as the distance is concerned, let's go and kind of spread it just a little bit more. And just going to press OK, and then perhaps going in and adjusting the opacity just that touch to kind of just lighten that mode. Selecting the bottom gradient fill again, and we duplicate that once more. Remember, double click into it and then it moves for us. So in this case I'm just kind of changing the direction just a little, so it's beginning to actually come in from the kind of almost the star effect here. And once more we'll just spread the effect and now basically reduce the opacity down across the image. If there's any part of the photograph that we want to have less effect on, of course, by just pressing B for brush and making sure we press D to put white on top, and then X to put black on top, okay? Because we've got a white mask here, we want to paint with black. So at this stage now we can start to actually go in and actually paint the different areas away if we didn't want it to actually fall on something specific. And of course if we make a mistake, we want to bring it back again, just press X and put the white back on top. If you're pressing X all the time, it just swaps background and foreground color away from each other. So again, you can see here we're kind of creating ourselves a simple way to add kind of almost a gradient effects across different images. So once more we're looking at an image here with the orange as the basic light fog. Then we've got the light leak at the base, and we can see the mask is being used. So let's see that in working for a minute. So we know that the first point in this point was the light fog, in fact, across the whole image. I think that's pretty good by itself. However, if I move it, you can see we've got this kind of sharp line, because basically if I move that to 100%, you can see it's a layer, just like another layer. Even though it's transparent-ish because of it's in the screen mode, it is still a solid. So even if I reduce the opacity down, all that's going to do is slightly change the line. But if I want to actually start to blend it all together, the first thing I would do, in fact, is Control T it to actually make it just a little bit stronger in the red for me. Yep, and then just go in and add in a mask, and then as far as B for brush, D for default, X to put black on top, and at this point I'll just change the opacity down to about 10%. So if I just press the 1 on the keyboard, you can see that goes straight away to 1, or 10% I should say. So now I can start to actually just paint in some of the actual image that is back. And of course a light leak wouldn't be uniform across the whole kind of image itself. So if we start to look at the light leak here, we can again double click just to move that image in and out across the image itself. If I want to actually say, well, it came in from the side, yep, then we've obviously got that kind of look. Then just pushing that out a little bit more, and pretty much we're done. So again, as far as when we're working with these kind of basic actions, once you start to create your own and start to understand how they work, it allows you to get pretty creative with your kind of photography, to just take it to that next level perhaps, and just add a little bit of a difference to it. But a kind of just a reminder before we finish, less is more. So in other words, always rely on the photograph that you're taking as the #1 priority of all the effort before you try and actually fix it in Photoshop. What we're doing in Photoshop is adding some drama, some kind of edginess and so on. But never be afraid, once you're almost finished, kind of just go in and kind of switch things on and off to see if they really add anything to the image. So again, it should be a good kind of incentive to you to have a little play around with light leaks and light fogs, because they can create some dramatic kind of designs for you in your photography.